Daniel, that was awesome. For those of you who weren't here last week, my name is Ken, and I have the privilege of getting to fill in a little bit, and it's glad to be back with you. Thank you so much. I love the contrast there. Last week, a gentleman opened one of the biggest Bibles I've ever seen in my life and read the passage, and this week Daniel opened his phone and read the same Bible. And I love that God is so diverse in that way. But this morning, as we read that, I could not help but think of amazing opportunity this morning to see what that passage and what we're going to look at, because there are really three decisions we have to make with the light. But in order to do that, I want to do this real quick. If we can just kill that for just a second. I want to ask you this. What part of your world is dark? Right now, well, obviously this one is, but in your life right now, which one is dark in the point where you're like, what do I do? What do I do now? And if you're just coming in, go ahead and close the door, but just wait. We're going to turn the lights on in a second. But here's the deal. What that passage is saying is the first thing we have to do is look for the light. And that light, once we see Christ in that situation, it's still shadowy, it's still dark, but the more we seek Him and the more we lift His light up, then we start to see more clearly, and the lights begin to shine, and we'll start to see different pieces, and then the lights kind of come on. And we start to see the perspective of what really can happen and what is happening. We see the peace that He's with us in the midst of that, and it just changes everything in the process. So I wanted you to see that visually as we look at these three choices. But if you and I will make these choices, let me see if I can do that. And there it is. And I want to go through each of these choices really simply. And the first one is in that first verse. No one lights a lamp and puts it in a place where it is hidden or under a bowl. Instead, it is put on a stand so that those who come it may see the light. Christ is standing there. The first decision we have to make, the first choice we have to make, is to let the light shine. Is to let it shine. We have to decide, I'm going to see and I'm going to focus on the light versus my issue and my darkness. And with that, I love the way that Jesus put it. Now, Jesus was a real man. He was all God, but all man. And there were four guys that not only hung out with him, but they actually wrote about what he said, and they were walking with him. Luke was one of those, the one we're looking at. John was another. John wrote down this one passage, this one verse that Jesus actually said. It says, when Jesus spoke again to the people in John 8:12, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Here's what I've discovered in my very few decades of living. Usually the most worried and anxious comes from the darkest places. Something bad happens. It doesn't look good, or we cannot see the solution. Without Jesus, it is dark. Darkness is not a color, it is a lack of light. That's what it is. And Jesus says, I am that light. And he says this also, realize this in John 16:33. Again, John hears Jesus and he writes this down. Jesus said, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. So first we have to make the decision, okay, let the light shine. I have to choose to look at Jesus. There's a second one where it really kind of unfolds in verses 34 and 35. It says, your eye is like the lamp of your body. Did you realize the eye is one of the only voluntary senses that we have? We choose to open our eyes or close our eyes. And I love this. It says, when the eye is healthy, now that word healthy can be translated a couple different ways. Healthy or generous or open. Your whole body is full of light. But when they are unhealthy or stingy or closed, your body is full of darkness. See to it then that the light within you is not darkness. In other words, we have to choose the light. We have to choose, okay, I know about the light, but I need the light in this area of my life. And if I could put it this way, too often we are passive about our situation, going, you know what, this is hard. God, why is this happening? We see the light, we acknowledge the light, but we're not letting Him in. And if I could put it this way, Um, Years ago, when I was just starting, I left the corporate world, working a lot of odd jobs. One of them was with a computer refurbishment company, and they worked with banks, and they need somebody to go out and identify problems with monitors that the tellers used, and then replace them if they were broken. And I'll never forget this one time they loaded up. There's like 12 different branches in Tampa. I drove all night, got there, went to these banks, and they said, okay, here's the process. When you go in, they'll show you which one is broken. And here's your first 2 steps. Number 1, make sure it's plugged in. Number 2, make sure it's turned on. Can I tell you, out of the 15 ones I had to replace, 2 of them were not turned on or plugged in. And I'm like, okay. Now, I learned a term in this world that really kind of made me laugh, and that was, they would call it and they used it in the shop, and I finally said, what is this term? It's an ID10T problem. Now, I don't know if you've seen this, ID10T. Now, you may not get that. You're like, why is that funny? Well, when you put them together, it kind of looks like the word idiot, okay? And I had to laugh about that. And then I actually shared an office with a buddy who was a software company for logistics. And he went to their biggest customer, and he was there for a week. And they would go through these problems. He was making sure that the software operated correctly. And he heard this term several times. They're like, oh, no, that was just a picnic. And he's like, a picnic? So at the end of the week, he's like, always, what's a picnic? It's nothing. It's just a term we use. He's like, does it mean like garden variety? What does it mean? And he said, well, we'll tell you before you leave. So Friday came, and he's like, what is a picnic? And they're like, are you leaving? And he said, yeah, I'm literally walking out the door. He says, okay, you cannot tell anybody. It's an acronym. And he's like, what do you mean? He said, problem in chair, not in computer. I share that with you and I because here's the deal. The problem is not with the light. The problem is with us walking in the darkness. We have to choose for that light to become real. We have to decide, where am I going to place the light? Now, if there was only one light in this room and it was totally dark, where would we place that one light? Probably in the center at the highest point so it could spread the most light. But if I was trying to read something and it was important to me and I'm reading, I would have that light as close to me as possible so that I could see what I'm doing. And there's even lights like that you can clamp onto a book that it's right there so you can read in bed. What God is saying to us through this passage in verses 34 and 35, if the eye is healthy or generous or open, what is the most healthy and generous place to put that light? And that's in the middle of the darkness we're going through. And that's the second choice we have to make. Matthew, one of the other guys that hung out with Jesus, he wrote this that Jesus said, and it's in Matthew 11, verses 28 and 30. Jesus said, come to me, all who are weary and burdened. Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but is there a part of your life that's weary and burdened right now and is dark? And he says, come unto me who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest, or I will put my light in you in that area. He said, and here's the key, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. In other words, get as close to me as you can. Yoke in, that's that wooden thing between 2 oxen. Yoke in with me and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. God is saying, hey, in your darkness, I want to take the weight, and I want to carry the bulk of it. But you get to choose. I get to choose. I don't want to be an ID10T problem. I want God to say, wow, you know what? He doesn't know a lot, but he knows where to go. And that's where I want to be in my walk with Christ. Because in this way, I'm telling you that truth changes everything. One of the first times I shared here, I talked about my heart surgery, and I'm not going to go into all that, but I just want to bring you into the moment. It was the morning of my open heart surgery. And I had gone through a bunch of verses, and God had just given me a peace about it. But I'm still contemplating this day. I'm about to have open heart surgery. I'm about to close my eyes. And I got about a 50-50 shot. They're not opening on this side of the eternity. It's a pretty somber moment, and I'm like, Lord, I have total peace, but I'm just kind of resting there. And the PA, the surgeon's first assistant, who would be doing some of the surgery, came in. And she said, "How are you doing today?" And I said, "Well, as good as I can be." And she said, "Did they go over everything with you and everything we're going to do and how it's going to go?" And I said, "No." She goes, "Nobody went over this with you?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know anything." She goes, "Oh my goodness. Well, let me tell you what we're doing. Here's what's going to happen, but here's why we are very optimistic about this procedure." She says, "Yes, you have blockage. Yes, that's bad, but everything else about you, you are healthy, you are this." And she just listened on, "This is going to go great." Can I tell you, I went from just neutral to positive. Because the one who was in charge, basically, of my life was like, "Here's why this is going to work out." Can I tell you that's what God longs to do for you and I in our darkest place? Let me show you this. It's really kind of cool. It's my truth. And the more you get into this, you're going to realize you're going to be all right. It may not feel like it. It may not look like it. And yes, there are problems. But be of good cheer. I've overcome all of them. And I'm with you in the middle of this. But we get to choose that. One of my favorite examples of someone who chose God, this man was born literally 100 years before me. He was born in 1864. He was born a slave. He was raised by German immigrants in the Midwest. He ended up going to college. He got a degree and got a master's degree in agriculture. He was wooed away from the Midwest. He was kind of a savant, a genius in the area of agriculture, to come to Alabama. And Booker T. Washington had lured him to Alabama. While he was there, he looked at the economy of the South, which was decreasing greatly after the Civil War. And he looked at it, and he was going through the agriculture, and cotton was king. The problem with cotton is it deplenishes the soil. And you have to let the soil rest for extended periods to be able to have a full crop. And that diminishes the return. And so he studied it. And he's like, "You know what we need to do?" And he says, "Peanuts." Now, peanuts, not only is it a crop that you can plant when you can't plant the cotton, but it regenerates the soil quicker, and you have a protein source, and there's other uses for it that can regenerate while the cotton is going to continue on in the other areas. Literally changed the economy of the South. And he came up with hundreds of uses for the peanut. And even up so much so he was invited to Washington to address Congress. Now, the day he was supposed to speak to Congress, he was forced to sit on the outside on the front steps because the pigment in his skin was the wrong color. Until they said, "Where is this genius?" And they said, "Well, he's on the front steps." They're like, "Why is he on the front steps?" And they bring him in. Some of Congress didn't want him there, but he said, "You got 15 minutes. And he explained he had to come over 300 uses for the peanut and how it changed the economy in the South. And one of the congressmen during the Q&A, he says, where did you learn? Where did you learn all this about the peanut?" He said, "In a really old book." And he says, "What is that book?" He said, "The Bible." He said, "The Bible talks about using the peanut?" He said, "No, sir. The Bible talks about the creator of the peanut. And I asked him what I need to do with it, and he showed me." Can I tell you, that's the same God today, who is intimately acquainted with every issue we're going through. And when we seek the creator of all this, he's not shocked by the messes we make. He is the solution for them. And if we'll take the time to say, "God, I choose you. I choose you in this way, in this light," then there's a last decision. Because as we go through that, tough times aren't going to just disappear. In verse 36, it says, "Therefore, if the whole body is full of light and no part is dark, it will be just as full of light as when a lamp shines its light on you." We have to completely trust the light. Completely. Lord, I know you're there, and I choose to let the light shine in my life situation. But Lord, I trust it. I trust it. And I love an old saying, "Be careful, little eyes, what you see." Because what goes in is what determines what comes out. And if we're letting a lot of darkness in, that's the way we're going to see the world. And I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the news, if you listen for like 5 minutes, is a little dark. If you listen around us, you got to have an opinion about everything and judge everybody, and everything is dark. But if we just say, okay, Lord, I want your truth to be the foundation. I want your light to be the light I see. I want your light in all of this. It changes everything. So here's my question for you and I. If each part of our life was a room, where is Jesus in that room? Where is he? One, am I allowing him in the room? Secondly, has I chosen to let him be the light? Let me see if I can get that on again because this is really cool. Have I let him be the light and the center of my focus in that room? And then thirdly, do I completely trust him in that? I want to give you another example of this. I love basketball, and I love coaching basketball. And I coached middle school basketball for about 12, 15 years. And I'll never forget my favorite coaching game ever. I was coaching 6th grade boys junior high basketball. Now, I don't know if you've been around 6th grade boys much. They're full of energy, and their brains are not fully developed. And I'll never forget this one coach that said, hey, I've got a team. We would love to play you guys. It'll be a good experience for your guys. There's a team of 7th and 8th graders. Now, I don't know if you know middle school, but there is a massive difference between 6th grade and 8th grade. Massive. And I knew my guys, though, and I said, you know what? We'd love to play you. You can come to our place. I'll get the refs and everything, and they did, and our guys were overwhelmed because they went to school with some of these guys. And the 7th and 8th graders were mocking them all week, going, we are going to kill you. And I knew that they were bigger. I knew they were more talented, and I knew they were quicker. But I knew my guys, and I said, guys, if you'll trust me, this will be a game you'll never forget. And they're just like, okay, coach. And out of that fear, and I called them up, and I taught them this week. I'm like, guys, how are we going to win? And they're just like, I don't know. I said, I'm going to tell you how we win. They're going to have 5 very talented individuals on that court. What we're going to have is we're going to have a team. And here's what we're going to do. I got a full team of guys right here, and every one of you has 5 fouls. So here's what's going to happen. They're not going to get in the paint. Now, if you're not familiar with basketball, that's the lane where it's kind of painted out. I said, if they start to come in there, I don't care if they have the ball or not, you're going to block them out, and you're not going to let them in there. If they're dribbling in and you're like, he's got an angle on me, I said, I don't care if you have to just wrap him up and throw him out of the lane, throw him out of the lane. I'm like, coach, that's a foul. And I'm like, I got 15 guys times 5. That's enough fouls for one game. And I said, here's the other thing. They're going to want to shoot outside and be off air. You know what the average is? I said the average shooting percentage of a 7th and 8th grader from outside is about 30% if they're really good. They're not going to get a second chance. We're getting every rebound. Anybody comes near that lane, you're going to put your butt into them, and you're going to drive them back as if I don't even have the ball. You're going to drive them back. What if I get a foul? I said, you get a foul with your butt, I will give you $1 for every foul you get with your butt. And they started to think, and they started to believe, and they thought, oh, my goodness. And I was so proud of those guys. They took me up at my word. And after about the second half, it got to halftime, and we're down by 2, and they're like, this is unreal. And they kept on, and we ended up winning by 5. And they came off in disbelief, like, how did that happen? How do you think they went to school that next day and faced those guys? I didn't do anything. See, that's what God longs for you and I. It only happens when we completely trust him. Even when it looks overwhelming and it's so dark we can't see, there's that one light. He says, I am the light and I am right here with you. Here's what I've discovered. The more I seek him, the more I see him in everything. And the more I seek him in that, I want us to just catch a glimpse for just a second. And then I want to read one more passage. And I want you in this process to be thinking, I know about the light. Have I chosen him in where I am? And do I completely trust him? I came across this clip. It's of an older gentleman. He literally looks like my grandfather. It's another birthday. And if you know older guys and birthdays, we don't need anything. And he's kind of have that attitude about him. But what you don't know is that he was born colorblind. And now he's in probably his early 70s. And it's another birthday, and okay, and he's just kind of jovial and all. But they got him a gift. And they got him a gift that was going to change everything. So take a look at this and see the response to when we see the light, the way God wants us to see it. Check this out.
Happy birthday, dear Daddy.
Yeah, okay.
Happy birthday to you.
How old are you now? Oh, there's something for you to open.
I'm younger than you. And what?
He thinks he knows what it is.
If I was going to guess,
Don't guess.
You're going to guess wrong.
You're gonna guess wrong.
really?
Yeah.
Are you saving the paper? No.
Happy birthday, baby, from all of us.
Happy birthday.
What is it?
Put them on.
Come on.
Put them on.
The sunglasses.
How does it look?
Oh, that's weird.
Look at the balloons.
Can you see with our eyes now, baby?
What colors you see?
Those.
You see colors now?
Oh, the trees are neat.
Now you have rose-colored glasses,
Saw them
baby.
before.
Now you see with our eyes. Do you like the balloons?
Yeah. Oh.
Turn around. What about the flowers in the house?
Oh my goodness.
Doesn't look like mud.
It doesn't look like mud. When we turn to Christ and we choose the light and we choose to trust him completely, he just wants us to see with his eyes. He wants us to see what he sees. There's a beautiful example of this in 2 Kings chapter 6 that I want us to just get a glimpse of. There's a king of Aram who's wanting to attack Israel. And every time he goes to attack them, Israel is not there. Or they know they're coming and they deflect it. And the king gets so frustrated, he goes, how do they know? Who is telling him? Why are you telling God that? Why are you telling the enemy that we're coming? They're like, there's this prophet. His name's Elisha. And God speaks to him and he tells him before we ever know. And let me just read the account to you. And I want you to identify with the servant in this scenario. In verse 13, the king says, go find out where he is so I can send men and capture him. The report came back. He's in Dothan, not South Alabama, but the one over there. Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. And they went by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early that next morning, an army of horses and chariots had surrounded the city. He comes back and he says, oh, my Lord, what shall we do? And Elijah says, don't be afraid. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Now, I want you to think about that for just a second. You're the servant, and it's just you and Elijah, and you're surrounded by an army. He's like, those who are with us are more than against. He's like, you can't just see him going, well, there's you and there's me. He says, don't be afraid. And then Elijah prayed, Lord, open his eyes that he may see. Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and he saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around the enemy. As the enemy came before him, Elijah prayed, strike these people with blindness. So he struck them with blindness, just as Elijah had asked. And Elijah goes and meets the army that's coming to get him, and he says, this is not the city you're looking for. Follow me, and I'll lead you to the man you're looking for. And he led them to Samaria, right into the middle of the camp of Israel. After they'd entered the city, Elijah said, Lord, open these men's eyes so they can see. And the Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and they saw where they were, inside Samaria. And the king of Israel saw them. And the king looked at them. They came to get Elijah. They've been trying to kill Israel. He says to Elijah, shall we kill him? Father, shall we kill him? And he says, no, don't kill him. Would you kill men that you captured from your own sword and bow? Set food before them and water before them so that they may eat and drink and then go back to their masters. So they prepared a great feast. And after they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away. And they returned to their masters. So the bands of Aram stopped raiding Israel forever. He wants us to see. He wants us to see. And occasionally he's going to open our eyes to see the great armies he has around. As we wrap up this morning, I want to pray for us, but I want to make a couple things opportune to you. One, in choosing the light, God gave us an incredible ordinance called the Lord's Supper. And it's just an active way we can acknowledge to ourselves, Lord, I choose you. I choose your brokenness so that I can be healed. I choose your blood so that I can be forgiven. And those stations are around the room, and you feel free to take those at any time. I would encourage you also, if you're one who's never chosen the light, you've known about God, but you haven't chosen him. It's a simple process of just going, Lord, please come in. I choose you. You're God, I am not. He says that if we believe in our heart that God raised Christ from the dead and confess with our mouth that he is God, then we will be saved. If you have questions about that, please ask. There'll be people up here to pray. I'll be over on the side. You can ask over there. I'll be glad to pray with you. But choose that. Or there may be that one part of your life right now you're like, you know what? I've been struggling with this. It's dark. This morning you may need to come and kneel, or you may need to just be where you are doing this and say, Lord, I've chosen you, but Lord, I completely trust you. You are the light. Show me the way you see it, because then it'll be all right. So whatever that is during this time, I want you to be able to just have that moment with God, and then I'll wrap us up. But go ahead and stand and let me pray for us. And then as we sing, you take part in whatever God lays on your heart. Father, thank you so much that you are the light, and you long for us to experience life the way you designed it and how you have it. Whatever choice we need to make this morning, Lord, guide us in that. And it's only through the precious blood of Jesus we can pray. And the power of the Spirit that opened the eyes for Elijah's servant and that raised Christ from the dead. And it's in that name that I pray. Amen.